For those that know me, they probably just know me as the guy who helped my friend over there, Kevin, sell Lucky Sickbo machines in Macau. But I think one of the things, and it's really an honor to be here. And when I say the word honor, I really mean this, because the gentlemen that have spoken ahead of me yesterday, that have taken part in the workshops, the panels, they're all long-term executives with experience in the industry. And for myself, for the past 4 years, being back in Japan, being away from the industry, just feeling what has changed, what hasn't changed, the struggles that people have gone through has really been mind-blowing. So this is an excellent event, and I thank Luis and the AGB team as well for organizing this. But at the end of the day, I'm just a Japanese guy that is trying to help my own country deal with this new situation that they're going through with what, for some very strange reason, people thought would be a very smooth process in Japan. Just to start off, a little bit of Japan IR 101. This might be elementary to some of you, but there were supposedly supposed to be 3 IRs in the industry. They created a Japan Casino Regulatory Commission, JCRC, right under the Prime Minister's office. So once again, they're making a lot of the movements that you've seen in other markets like Singapore and Nevada. There's a 30% gaming tax that they brought up on GGR. Well, what exactly is their definition of GGR? We're at this time, and there's still no 100% clear answer. And then, of course, we have the often talked about entry levies. So, just these things that are unique or supposedly unique to the Japanese market, they're borrowing from a bunch of other industries or other markets such as Singapore, from Nevada. There's other detailed things that I'll get into maybe in the future. Venue scale-wise, I'm taking these numbers from the Osaka IR project. It's on their homepage. But we're talking about huge, international conference complexes. These are going to be the biggest in Japan. And if they're making 3 of the biggest in Japan at the same time, that's quite an undertaking. If you want to know the details and stuff, you can ask me down the line. About approvals and licenses, well, the law itself, it will not be re-evaluated until they have their first approvals, which is supposedly supposed to be this year. I'll get into that. But the key point is the licensing. And I think anyone who is an investor or has done any kind of investing in this industry knows that this first initial 10-year period, quite short. This includes construction from the date that they get the approvals. And there's a 5-year renewal period, which is quite short in international standards. Casino licensing, which is a little bit more complicated. I won't get into that today, but also 3 years. So once again, if you're investing in a project that takes 6-7 years to build once there's approval from the national government, we're looking at 3 years of operation, and you already have to start your renewals. And how does the first 3 years of a huge IR always look? Depends on who's running it, I guess. The where, this conversation topic always comes up. Right now, there are 2 municipalities that have made their official applications to the national government. Osaka with their MGM and Oryx consortium, as well as in Nagasaki, a little bit more of a regional market down in Kyushu Island with, well, now they've changed the name to Kyushu Resorts, but originally was the Casino Austria's bid. So just some photos. I mean, this is from the government website, so I'm not stealing any kind of designs or anything. That's the MGM one. That is the one in Nagasaki that they've thought about, and I'm sure that these will end up looking a little bit more different as time goes by. But the big question, and this one, I'll be upfront with all of you right now, the when, I have no idea. One of the things that have been mentioned by the national government is that someone slipped, and said, fall 2022, we'll be sure to have our first approvals out. But right now we're at a state where, okay, well, that's 2 or 3 months away. And how are we actually looking? It's quite unclear. Even the opening times that are officially put in these plans submitted to the national government, Nagasaki says 2027. That's less than 5 years from now. For Osaka, they've said fiscal year 2029, which is kind of interesting, and I'll get into that. But to be quite honest, I don't think we're looking at anything within the next 5-6 years. Of course, I'm not just making random guesses out here. We have to look at things logically. What are the issues in each of the markets? Right now, Osaka, if you follow the news, is going through a public referendum request where the citizens have asked, they want to have a vote on whether or not they want to do an IR in Osaka. And this stems from a landfill pollution. So the site that the Osaka IR is supposed to be built upon has been found to be unfit in terms of toxicity, and a lot of these things didn't come out until after the bidding procedure. So it is a quite sensitive time right now in Osaka. I'm sure that the referendum actually will get shot down within the local government. But that's also not a very good look, and it mirrors exactly what happened to my hometown in Yokohama, where 5 years ago I was telling people it's not going to happen here. That's just not the general mood of the city. And lo and behold, a referendum gets shot down, and we have a brand new mayor who has not been able to do anything because his whole story, his whole push, his whole agenda was to stop the IR in Japan. It's also an interesting point because the IR actually changed politics in the biggest city in Japan. So, it's not to say that this is something that's just going beyond people's lives. This is actually affecting people there. Nagasaki itself, they have a lot of issues about improving their financial well-being on the project. I think finance-wise is a little bit more easier to fix in terms of there is a fix. You just find more funding and prove that you have it. But again, it's not as easy as it sounds, and there's a lot of maneuvering going on. And this is, again, one of the reasons why that Japan has chose to do a consortium build. I won't get too much into the details on that one, but you'll still see a lot of jockeying between who are the partners. The main people of the consortiums, the main shareholders, should be the same, but who is making up the rest? There's still going to be some changes, as much as can be allowed. And I go back to one of the comments I just said earlier. Osaka itself, the official the mayor of Osaka mentioned that his goal right now is to open the Osaka IR by fiscal year 2029. This is quite funny when you think about it, because if you go back and think about the timeline, fiscal year 2029 is up to March 2030. If approvals are given this autumn, 10 years from this autumn is October 2032. If we all know how Japan works, the renewal process probably would take, a year, half a year or so, just to go through the procedures. They're going to have their first renewal in this schedule with less than one full business year of operations. This really doesn't make much logical sense, but that's kind of the situation that we're at right now. So let's think logically. I mean, it's quite simple. I've just said it. Osaka needs time. Nagasaki needs time. And I've only mentioned 2 cities, 2 applications, when the national government's plan was to have 3. And ideally, I don't think this is breaking news to anyone, but it's breaking news here. Japan wants 3 IR locations. This is just common sense. The Casino Regulatory Commission was built to be funded by 3 IRs. The national policy was built on having a good balance of, rural areas, or I should say kind of more local areas, as well as big cities. So the balance kind of gets a little bit mixed up when you only have 2. Where this 3rd one will be, we'll get a little bit into that right now, but I don't have a clear answer at the moment. But I do have, I would say, an opinion on how the situations are going in certain cities and municipalities. So Hokkaido, for example, they always come up as a place, great, ski resort area, lots of food. The winter there is beautiful. Ice festival is amazing. And the governor has shot down the IR project. There's also an issue there about they haven't done their full land evaluation in terms of environmental effects. And off of what is happening in Osaka right now, I don't think they'd go forward without budgeting for that first. So what to look for in Hokkaido is if they budget for the environmental evaluations. Wakayama, which was actually in the running to make an application until just about 2 or 3 months ago when it fell at the local government side. This one, could it revive? I mean, there's lots of politics involved. There was lots of operator situations where Sun City mysteriously dropped out at a certain point. It would be quite difficult to revive it, I think, just from the point of view of the gaming industry, of having confidence in going back to somewhere that dropped it at the last moment. So on a little bit more of a positive note, Aichi Prefecture, which is more known for Nagoya City, where nearby there's also the Toyota, it's kind of the headquarters, and Mie Prefecture nearby. This area, they've been having positive communications, and there's never really been like a negative storm too much built in that area. Chiba, which is where Tokyo Disneyland is located. Tokyo Disneyland is not in Tokyo. But it's also where Narita Airport is, and now that their governor and mayor situation is cleared up, there may be some headway there. And everyone always wants to know, how about Tokyo? I think every single operator representative that I've talked to that have come to Japan or have been looking into Japan in the past year or so, they're at a point right now where they want to see, what's the RFP going to look like? What are the requirements of Tokyo going to look like? Because this is going to be another multi-billion-dollar project. Multi-billion isn't even a good way to put it. $20 billion project. They want to see what the requirements look like before even making a reply. And I think that's really how it should have been in the first place. So what could happen? I stand here saying I don't know what's going to happen, but there's really only three things that could happen. I'll start from the bottom. We could go as is. Maybe one of Osaka or Nagasaki gets their license. Maybe two get it, maybe none get it. And where do we go from there? The other option is there could be some type of middle ground where you have a tentative approval to get started. Not, again, something that's very, it's not good news to ears of investors, right? So again, I don't see this happening too much, but this is some vocab being thrown around. We had our upper house elections, got overshadowed by the untimely passing of our former Prime Minister Abe, but the upper house elections finished up 2 weeks ago. With that, the ruling party that has originally pushed for the IR in the first place have secured not only the lower house, but the upper house majority. So one of the things that will come out soon is how they'll handle the IR going forward. And the other option that would make sense is reopening the application period. At the end of the day, this is a license application. It's not a bid. A lot of people say bid, but it's not really a bid. It's kind of like a construction license. You can keep on going until you get the approval. But you have to remember that every time you change your plan, in Japan, you need to get your local council to approve, and you need to get your local prefecture to approve. But again, it's not a closed door once you fail. At this point, I feel that's probably the most likely, but that is just pure speculation on my side. So one of the options, I think, would go one of these three ways. And since we're here in ASEAN, so one of the things here that is quite important is the effect on the market of, for example, the Philippines, for example, Vietnam, for example, even Singapore or Korea. Another kind of basic topic here, but when we look at geography, Japan is actually strategically located to target a lot of the Korean market, for example, but most importantly, the northern Chinese market. In my time in Japan, actually, I found out, for example, that the city of Nagasaki and Dalian in China are sister cities and have been promoting international tourism between each other, pre-COVID, obviously. And things like that. Actually, I think Fukuoka Airport is within 2.5 hours of about 1 billion people in population. So once again, there is kind of effect in the point of if any kind of operator with a strong development program within these geographical areas, they would have a time advantage. There's another thing with MICE as well, is that bringing in the people, the products, the big machinery and things, and especially for MICE products, it's for MICE events, it's an advantage if you have really, really more high technical detailed things. If you're dealing with microprocessors and cars and gaming machines like we used to do, you need to actually have the people come. You need your employees from abroad to come. You need your customers to come, because you're not explaining that through Zoom. I've tried that and it just doesn't work. So just other effects that can be talked about. The one that I have a clear answer for right now is that for the effect on Japanese high rollers, we mentioned before there's an entrance levy for Japanese players. Well, high rollers, that's not much of an issue. Also, to get into a Japanese IR, most of you all can come in with your passport, but I need to show my number ID. It's kind of like a social security number ID. I also have to declare all my winnings as soon as, when I leave the premises. They actually put it in the gaming standards that you can't leave the casino floor with a Tito ticket or a chip. So, of course, I wish them good luck in implementing that. There are ways to get around that, for example, if they go in a full cashless system, but that's a little bit more technical. High rollers, if you have a high rolling customer portfolio right now, consider them safe, obviously, for the next 6 or 8 years while nothing really opens up. But even going forward, because it's similar kind of to the cases of other markets where you're not really going for your local VIPs who want the ambiguity, and a new word that I've been practicing saying all day yesterday, the anonymity of being a customer abroad. And the other one, and I think this is quite important and doesn't get touched upon often, is the effect on labor demand. Japan, as you know, is not a very young country. There's already shortages in the hospitality industry, the theme park industry, and bringing people from abroad. And then when we bring people from abroad, there's not enough international schools, there's not enough translators to deal with the situation. And a lot of issues come up with this. But the other thing is not just in the management realm, but also frontline staff. Japan's over the past few years have been very reliant on Southeast Asian talent to work with their medical industries. And yeah, it might be only 1, 2, or 3 IRs, but if it's in a rural or regional area, where are they going to bring their people from? I mean, they're not all coming from Tokyo at once. So there will be an effect on labor, and I think it'll be a competitive market, just as it is right now in most of the markets worldwide. So yeah, just to finish up, I think, just to give a short example, because I know there's a lot of suppliers here today, and there's also people who have visited Japan, with an eye on working on the industry. If anyone's done business in Japan, I'm sure they've had the situation where you have a meeting or like an opinion exchange, as they call it, where basically you're giving them a 90-minute consultation service for free, and then they never get back to you, and they just take your info and then share it like it's their own info somewhere else. It is quite a difficult place to do business. The rate of how things are going is not very surprising in terms of the political landscape. And I do hope that there will be a little bit more patience as the kinks kind of get, fixed up and all the wrinkles get spread out going forward. But I hope that, I hope that you'll have a little confidence, but also if you want to know what's going on, if you want to have a meaningful experience in the Japan IR procedure, I'm always here to help, whether if it's a due diligence call on a shady Japanese investor, or if it's just, confirming if a rumor is true. So with that, I hope that the golden nugget that was which was once Japan does not turn into a nugget of another color, and I will end on that note. Thank you very much.